Friday night, just gone 7 o'clock, and we're late again, but down to some technical difficulties this time. You're tuned into, as always, the Friday night football pitch with myself, Cammy McDonald, and as always, my co-host Dennis Newell. Joined tonight as well by, I'm going to say it, fellow Washington Commanders fan, Scott Hartley. Hey Scott, at least we've got something we can bum about, because your Carlisle United side and my Clyde side are hopeless. So there we go. Dennis, apologies, get the American football stuff out the road first of all. But good evening to you both. First of all, Dennis, how are we?
Good, Cammy. Good evening to you, Scott, and you, Cammy. Yeah, everything's good.
Yeah, apologies, I say, for the technical gremlins there, but we've got it going now, so we're all good to go. And Scott, how are we this evening? How's things?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Thank you both for having me on. I appreciate you opening the invite to me. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a good show. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, but nice to talk about the UK version of football rather than obviously what you normally talk on a Thursday. So there we go. Anyway, as I say, I think it's been a quieter week. Obviously, it's been International Week, Nations League stuff. Obviously, England and Scotland having different fortunes. England obviously winning both their games. Scotland losing one and drawing the other against Portugal. Dennis, how much of the games did you see?
I've seen them all, Cammy.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't the worst.
No.
Again, we had this conversation last week when we spoke about expectations and the manager and what he's doing. And my problem is not settling the fact that the manager, it needs time and he's doing his best and he's done exceptionally well to a degree. But it's the persistence of playing poor players that I don't like.
Yep.
And the willingness to actually try boys out that basically are no fit for the job at that level. Maybe good in a lot of ways, but I keep thinking to myself, he needs to change things and freshen up a little bit more. Now, you could say that against Croatia, he tried that, but at the same time, it's maybe not just enough for me. And unfortunately, maybe I wouldn't ever be happy with it, but I just look at it and go, the boys that he's brought in, you look at it and you say to yourself, Doak, he's not set the hell on fire with me at all. He's brought the boy in from Aberdeen, and he's a right back.
Yeah.
Is that Nicky Devlin, is it, Dennis?
Yeah, the boy Devlin, and he's not played him. And Ralston doesn't get a game with Celtic first team. I think Ralston is okay, but he's probably not, as we know, at Celtic level, and he's short of Scottish team level. So you look at that and you say to yourself, there's a flaw in that right channel. Doak doesn't give us anything. Ralston is pretty poor. And then, without going on about it too much this week, Hanley's never a centre-half that's of international quality.
Yeah.
Robertson does us very well at the back, probably one of the stars of our team for a long number of years. And I'll tell you what, Cammy, the one that's really stood out and shown his worth to me is Suter.
Yeah.
Suter, to me, has been a shining light in these last two games especially. I always liked him when he was breaking through at Hearts a long while ago, but injuries obviously curtailed his movement, maybe to the top quality centre-half that he was potentially going to be. But I'll tell you what, he's clawing his way back, and maybe it's because he's the goalkeeper in front of him with Gordon. You don't know that. It might be because they can go by a long, long way. But I just look at that and I look at the team. The boy Devlin didn't go on. Gold was on for a wee while. Looking through the rest of them, there's nothing really jumps out at me, honestly. And I think we are lacking big time when you get away from the starting 11. We have good players in there. We have the likes of Billy Gilmore. I like Ryan Christie, McTominay. But up front, we're a dead loss. We really are. And I touched on that and had a wee rant before we started the programme because you asked me a stupid question in my eyes. Do you like tattoos? No, big time. And I'll tell you what, it's attention-seeking when it comes to footballers getting covered in them. And if I thought that Lyndon Dykes could actually go and start working on finishing goals, I wouldn't mind a selfie with him. But I'll tell you what, he needs to get a look at himself. He broke into that Scotland team, Cammy, and he was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Then he thought, I've arrived. And after that, he's gave us nothing. The only thing I've seen him changing is where else is he going to put his next tattoo? There's no room.
No.
So he doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't shut down quick enough. And it's like token gestures, and he becomes then a jersey filler, which we have quite a few.
Yeah.
And therefore, I look at that and I go, that's up to the manager. Back to the original statement about the manager. He's got to get more out of them and maybe explain these things to them. Look, son, you don't need it. You don't need to be seeking attention. You've already got it. You've made it international level. Now go out and bust a gut and play for your country. No, token gestures are no use. In other words, you're not going to come off the park absolutely shattered. And that's what you should be doing, especially playing for your country. So I'm disappointed with him because when he broke into the team, I thought, wow, we've really got a good centre forward now. You tell me what's wrong with him. It's not the fact that he's not getting service. His work rate is garbage.
Yeah.
And then you put Adams on. He's worse. Maybe he should get a tattoo. But the bottom line is we are badly lacking a good centre forward.
Yeah.
And if you do look at what's available, you can take the fact that Nisbet, is he going to break through? I thought he was a poor man centre forward when he was at Hibs. He's came back into Scotland. He'll probably do okay. The spell down south will do him the world of good. And then you look at Shankland, who another one is just totally gone off the boil and gives us nothing. So out of 4 players, I'm really disappointed that we don't have anything going forward at this moment in time. Strikers do go off the boil, but no 4 of them. And that's what I think. We can't afford that. Overall, though, I thought, sorry, Cammy.
On you go.
Overall, I thought we'd done very, very well over the 2 games. And it would have been nice if we had at least scraped a victory in one of them, which I thought we maybe deserved. But it's the same old thing with Scotland. We just never got over the finishing line. Yeah.
Scott, obviously you're obviously an Englishman, but you're married to a Scot for your sins. And as I say,
I lived in your beautiful country for 6 years as well. So, yeah, a lot of ties back to Scotland. And I'm with Dennis. I've watched the highlights and looking back at it, I thought you were really unlucky against Croatia. You know, Christie scored, and I thought, come on, this is going to be all right. This is going to be a decent game, and you just couldn't get over the line. Ben Doak, which you were talking about there, I mean, he's been playing really well down at Middlesbrough. Yeah. You know, I've been keeping an eye on him down there, but he just doesn't seem to do it at international level, which they seem to get into that shirt, as Dennis says, and then they fall off, or they just don't give the effort that you all want to see. I mean, in any sport, no matter what it is, you just want to see 100% commitment to the cause and to the jersey that they're wearing, irrespective of who it is, especially if you're at international level. The Hampden game at Portugal, I thought was a really good point. You know, Ronaldo played really well. I had no idea that Che Adams was even at Torino, so that was a new one to me. And I mean, debut for Nicky Devlin from Aberdeen. He looked lively enough. I thought that Scott McTominay had a good chance early on in that game, and it just didn't come right for you. And overall, I think the difficulty with Scotland as a whole is you're always going to have that problem with player pool. It's not like it is down south where you have endless streams of players, and the money that's generated out in the EPL, the Premier League, and even in the Championship and lower leagues, you're going to struggle to match that in any way. So I'm not saying that Scottish internationals should be fishing in League One or in the Championship, but maybe that's like where you need to kind of be looking to see these players coming through. I think overall, I thought he played really well in both games. Getting a point against Portugal is a decent result, and then it's on to Croatia, isn't it? Again in November at Hampden. So it's going to be tough to get out of that group of the Nations League. But overall, it's one of them.
I go back to why bring the boy Devlin in if you're not going to give him a run at? I mean, he knows. He put him on 89th minute. What's he meant to do?
Yeah, there ain't much you're doing.
You can't change a game in injury time, can you? That's for sure.
No.
And I mean, if you look at it as well, it was the same old. You could actually go to the bookmakers and make, if the odds were good, but the odds would be terrible on Ryan Christie coming off.
Yeah.
Every game you can see rabbit in the headlights to get off the park. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Ryan Christie must feel, what am I doing that's getting me taken off? When you've got Kenny McLean out there, who to me again struggles to be up to that kind of level of football. But Ryan Christie always seems to be the scapegoat. I'm not saying he's perfect, but I'll tell you what, he works his socks off.
Yeah.
So without going on about it and having a rant, I think it's a wee bit disappointing with some of it. But as you think, Scott, we should have got something out of
both games.
Listen, it wasn't with our grass to get
absolutely
the results.
Yeah.
What do you think of Lewis Morgan, Dennis and Cammy? What do you think of his performances? Obviously, I thought he looked good in the Portugal game, but I mean,
I like Morgan. I think he's a decent player. He's obviously getting a wee bit of experience. I think playing overseas has maybe helped him a wee bit as well. You know, so I mean, I definitely like the boy. And as I say, he looks decent at times. You know, he definitely does look decent. But I mean, the thing with Scotland, I mean, there can't be many nations, certainly home nations or otherwise, who've got 3 players playing or trading in Serie A.
Yeah.
You know, Scotland. There's you're saying obviously about looking down south, maybe in the Championship or League One. I mean, Scotland have got 3 players now who I say are playing at the highest level overseas, and that can only help. You know, I think you stagnate, getting stuck in the Premier League at times. You know.
Is it McTominay and Gilmore are both at the same team now?
Yeah.
Now, is it Napoli they're at?
They're both at Napoli. Yeah,
I thought so.
Then as you say, with Shea Adams at Torino. You know, so we've got players who are plying their trade overseas, and I think that can definitely only help these players. You know, you saw it many years ago with Gascoigne, what obviously playing overseas did for him. You know, so
okay.
One of the best players I've ever seen play football, even playing for Boston United when he was player manager. There was moments of that game I watched him play where he just did something special. It was just a minute of magic, and I thought, wow. You'll know what it's like when you see a player that's that good that must have been at the top of their game. I mean, I saw David Platt play for Lazio, and he was Sampdoria, and he was unbelievable. And then I thought, right, yeah. And when you got someone like Gascoigne playing, even for Boston in League Two, he was really, really good. Even at 40-odd-year-old. So you're right in what you're saying. If you ply your trade abroad, and we know Gaz's story about Glasgow Rangers and everything else, he was amazing.
Gascoigne must be up there in the top dozen players in the world.
100%.
The
100%
boy
agree
was
with you.
absolute magnificent. And I'm not talking, obviously, the spell at Rangers, but when you look at his talent and the way he played throughout his years, I just wish he people like that there just now. I mean, you queue up to see Ronaldo there the other night, and bit of letdown. Gascoigne was in that same mould in relation to entertainment that Ronaldo. I know a different position. 100%. I'm not making a comparison. What I'm saying is he's up there with the best, and so you never be able to take it away from Gascoigne. Absolutely amazing. And overseas probably did help him a good bit. I had a tough time out there because I watched his video on the period he was there. It didn't help him really well. His lifestyle and everything else. The same with Maradona. It didn't work out great for them. But at the same time, it will be an experience that they've brought back and still played well. Yeah.
I mean, there can't be. There's not many British players who have succeeded overseas and then came back here and flopped. You know, you look at likes of guys like Lineker when he went over there and came back. You know, so I mean, guys just now, if we look down south, guys like Conor Gallagher, Scott. You know, I mean, that going overseas can only help the guys. You know, absolutely. And I mean, it helped Trippy as well. You know, his spell at Atletico Madrid. You know, it definitely helped him and made him a better player too. You know, so I think that spell overseas, and it's something I think that more players need to do. You know, and maybe it will stop them getting tattoos, Dennis, if they're spending their time overseas.
Maybe they've not got time to do that, because the bottom line is that they're meant to be training, and that's probably the reason why he's got time in his hands and he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, Well, at least he's staying out of bookies and pubs, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Anyway, listen, everybody to their own, Cammy. I say that a bit tongue in cheek. If that's what the boy wants to do, fair enough. But I don't think that affects his game overall. I just think he needs to maybe have a look at his contribution. And remember, I'm not knocking him as a player. I think he's excellent, Dykes. I really do. He's got an upper body strength that's superb, and he's good in the air. But he's not turning it on for me. And at this moment, we need somebody to rely. We need to rely on him, and he needs to understand that we need him. And if we look at it, we've now got then the 15th of November, and we're at home on the Friday, the 15th of November to Croatia. That's a 7:45 kickoff, and then Monday the 18th of November, we're away to Poland, and that's a 7:45 kickoff. Two good games again. And listen, I still look at it and think, potentially, if we could just sort the back out a little bit better and get somebody up front, it's no mountain we've got to climb. We could probably get 6 points off that, and it's not getting carried away. We have seen these teams; they are not out of this world, and I think it's still achievable that Scotland can get something more than they have at the previous matches.
Yeah. What do you think of the goalkeeping situation? Would you stick with Craig Gordon? I mean, he had a good game against Croatia, but or are you waiting for Gunn to come back from injury? Or I don't know what's happening there.
Scott, if it's no broken, don't fix it. It's no broken.
Okay.
And that's my view of a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers look after their cell. They're a different breed altogether. And the bottom line is, Craig Gordon's done an excellent job for Scotland, and it's yet to be seen him failing. And I would continue with him. He doesn't look his age. He's looked after himself, considering injuries he's had. It's good to have a backup then, if you want to call it that. But I certainly wouldn't have him as my backup. I would either have him playing or not in the squad at all. You don't have somebody that age just sitting around. It's no point.
I think with what you were saying, Dennis, about obviously the fact that he's playing behind centre halves that include John Souttar.
Yes.
I think you're probably better with Gordon in there, where they had that bit of a rapport rather than bringing Angus Gunn back in and obviously disrupting that defensive line-up at the back,
It seems to be worked, whether it's because that's the two teammates of old, I don't know. It certainly looked, I thought we were more stable and defended with our lives the other night there. And as I say, we were a bit unlucky.
Yeah, moving away from Scotland, Scott, and obviously looking at your own nation. I know it says England get 2 wins. Obviously, the loss against Greece, and obviously the victory against Iceland. Lee Carsley, a bit of a mixed job as caretaker for you, but obviously that's obviously fixed now. Bringing a German in, that's going to go down well with a lot of you English guys, but. You've probably done enough to almost swap places with Scotland in terms, obviously, your Nations League pairings, your Nation League groups. You move into Section 1 in Scotland, maybe dropping down to Section 2 if we can get these 2 victories.
Yeah, I think Thomas Tuchel being on an 18-month deal is an interesting one. It's not a huge contract from what I'm led to believe. Obviously comes in from Bayern Munich. Not winning the league in Bayern is a bit of a difficulty, especially in that league. When you look at the Bundesliga as a whole, you've got Dortmund and Bayern and Leverkusen have been on fire recently. So Thomas Tuchel's come back, obviously former Chelsea manager, so he'll get a lot of the personalities and he'll understand most of the lads that are in the team. Against Finland, I thought it was fairly easy as a win. Trent Alexander-Arnold at left back was a bit of a... I didn't really understand that one, to be honest. Grealish had a very good game, and Watkins played well as well for me. The loss to Greece, just one of them where you're always going to, if you score in the 87th minute, you're on a hide into nothing, and then you just got sucker punched at the end there. As I say, I'm not a massive international football fan. I'm club over country, which is a bit of a strange one for most people. I don't even watch the nations games, to be fair. I tend to... I don't get on the bandwagon either. Anyone who that we know, mutual friends wise, will tell you I'm barely watching the World Cup, to be honest with you, or Euros. Did I get on the bandwagon at the last Euros? Yeah, of course I did. I did. I wasn't going to miss it. But I hope Thomas Tuchel comes in. He's got big shoes to fill, in my opinion. I don't think there was much towards the end with Southgate. It was a bit it was a bit difficult, and it was a bit. He almost got stuck in his own ways of not changing formations, and not being able to change the tempo of how the team played. And I think it just got into that stage of, I've been here a bit too long, and it got a bit stale, and he couldn't get over the edge. But as a manager, and what he's done to get the country to where it's got to, I mean, you can't argue with it. The record that he's got, you cannot argue with the record that he's got. And Thomas Tuchel's got big shoes to fill here. Taking a foreign coach is another interesting one. This is our third now, with obviously Capello and Eriksson before him, and R.I.P. Sven-Goran Eriksson. And it's one of them where I hope it works. I hope it works out for him. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. As I said, short-term deal for him. So 18 months, we'll see where we are. I didn't think Lee Carsley did enough to warrant getting the job full-time. So they've done their due diligence, and they've come up with Thomas Tuchel. So.
Dennis, is it a case with England that be careful what you wish for? As I say, a lot of the public got on the back of Gareth Southgate in terms of, because they didn't like his style of play. The guy took him to 2 finals, but they didn't like the style of play. So media, and obviously public, driven probably by the media, got on his back. And they've now gone to a guy on a short-term contract, as Scott says, which is very interesting in international football. They'll get enough for maybe one tournament, and that's it.
Well, I think it's a bad appointment. I'm always up front and say exactly what I think. Doesn't agree with it. Everybody agrees with me. But if I look at that, Tuchel got sacked at Chelsea.
Yep.
And he left Chelsea in a state that Graham Potter had to come in there and try and rectify it. And I know for a fact the training was a total shambles. Right? They should have done their homework to find that out before he went to Bayern Munich. You put me in charge of one of these top teams with the kind of money that these clubs have spent. You don't have to tell them how to kick the ball. You don't have to tell them how to do throw-ins. You don't have to have your goalkeeper, as I have in the past, trying to get them to kick the ball over the halfway line. You don't have all that. These guys have already been coached at the highest level to actually be part of that team to begin with that you go to. I'm talking about Bayern Munich. And if you can't be a success there, you're not doing the gig. The same as at Chelsea. And Graham Potter was left with a team of players that were in a total shambles. And when they tried to change them, there was a bit of a rebellion in a lot of ways, simply because Tuchel let them away with it. So I know he's been successful. In the past, I've been successful, but I'm not a club. So there seems sometimes managers get rewarded by failure an awful lot easier now than they did years gone by. And Tuchel is a prime example of that. And the 18 months is probably 8 months more than I would have given them if they're willing to take the risk.
Yeah. I think there's a reason. I think Tuchel was interviewed for the Manchester United job, and I think there's a reason Manchester United, despite the shit show that they are, didn't entertain Tuchel and decided to stick with what they have, rather than moving on from him, over the summer period when Manchester United were interviewing people left, right and centre. I understand Andy Burrow's getting an interview for the Man United job, Scott.
If it was me, I'd have gone with Eddie Howe. In all honesty, I'd have took Eddie Howe in a heartbeat.
But it's going to cost them money, Scott. This is the problem you've got with these authorities. They're not in the transfer market or anything like it. I mean, God knows what England's actually got financially behind them, but I'd imagine it's quite a few bucks. And if you really want the manager that you've just suggested, sometimes you have to dip yourself into the pocket instead of looking for handouts all the time. So I look at England, and you're right, Eddie Howe probably would have been the best equipped. I'm not saying Graham Potter would have, because that's not everybody's choice.
Good manager, though. Did really well at Brighton.
Yeah, I'm a bit stumped as well. Tuchel would probably be maybe 7th or 8th in line with me if it was my choice. When I know the history behind the guy in relation to him getting sacked at Chelsea, they've seen his antics. They've seen his antics in the Premier League. What are they bringing that to the England team for? I really find it's a very strange one. And good luck to him if he can get England players to go and work for him. But I think they're not moving forward with this appointment. Definitely
I
not.
agree. I agree with you completely, Dennis. I think we needed that steady hand on the tiller just to follow on from Southgate, but maybe play a bit more of an expansive football. And I think someone like Eddie Howe or even Graham Potter would have given you that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be an English appointment for England manager. I'm not interested in that at all. But you need someone who's going to give you that steady hand on the tiller, but also someone who's able to tactically get the best out of these players and give them a rocket up their arse when they need one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we see it. I mean, they're getting paid a fortune to go and play for your country. And it's not, it's a lot of money to get there. But I look at players and think to myself, like, why aren't you picking this lad in the squad here? And Lee Carsley's tried to do that by bringing newer players into the squads, but it just didn't work. It was almost like he knew he was a caretaker manager and he was never going to get the job. And we've our last 4 performances have played like that,
But the way I look at him not getting the job is simply because that wasn't broken either, and they try to fix it.
Yeah.
I look at the additions to his squad, and unless they're better than what's there, you don't bring them in because you feel you need to make change.
Yeah.
The England team don't need someone that's going to be dynamic in a lot of ways because they're only a kick in the backside away from getting to finals. It was a matter of fine-tuning it, getting a little bit more out of the players that are there, get rid of the older ones that basically maybe are not going to take you to the next, the next stages. And that's what you do. But I think he was trying to bring players in to freshen up so it would maybe make them look what I've done when that really wasn't needed. And maybe speaking to the press and explaining, look, what do you want here? I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm a football coach. And the bottom line is we're not far away. I'll fine-tune it. Just give me some time and I'll get it right. Instead of that, I just felt he was under pressure. And that game against Greece, I just don't think that was a team that was going to win anything. Because it was too many just at the races and they shuffled it about just a little bit too much for me.
Yep.
And they were out their comfort zone. The central defence was all over the place in that game.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
I don't know. It's disappointing to see that he didn't get a longer spell as caretaker manager. Maybe the next couple of games would have been better for him to have that, and then you could have gauged him. I just think that was maybe another knee-jerk reaction from the FA.
Yeah.
But we'll just need to wait and see. But again, I repeat, 2 goals no for me.
No, definitely not. But anyway, as I say, that's international football over for another month.
November the 14th, England are visiting Greece. So if they're going to get beaten Hampden with Greece, it'll be interesting to see if they can go over there and it can be changed. And then the 17th of November, they've got the Republic Island at home, England. So that's the next couple of ties they've got.
So we were discussing it in work this morning about the international football. I'll come to you first, Dennis, because obviously Scott, as he's already says, doesn't watch much international football. But do you think we're at a stage now where there is too much international football, Dennis? It almost seems that every month now we're having that international break. And I'm of that opinion. I think we're playing too many games at international level now.
I think there's too many games overall. We've got Champions League, Europa League, and we've got the Conference League as well. There's 3. We have internationals, and then we have all the cup ties that we have, and then you've got your Northern League. And I don't think that unless you are a Man City or a Liverpool or somebody that's really top heavy with players, that you can go through the full season playing in these games, either internationally if you're one of the players that's picked, or Champions League or Europa League, whatever it may be, that your team can go through the league and, what would you say, not so much distracted, but be consistent from the squad that manager's actually picked, because you can't guarantee, you'll never be able to guarantee the fitness of a player, but there's more chance when you've got all these, what would you say, side issues, I would call it. I know we need things like European football. We do need our internationals. And certainly the main thing for everyone is the country's Premier Leagues and then your divisions below it. Mm-hmm. But I think it needs to be thinned down. I think we had Andy on here maybe about a month ago, and he was talking about the Super League.
Yeah.
And basically, I said, we've almost got a Super League. There's 36 in the Champions League. Now, I would start off right at the beginning and say, okay, tell you what, you've got 2 games, and you then cut it to 18. There's your Super League for the whole season. And the rest can go back. Just go back to playing in your league that you're there. You're not losing anything. Now, I'm deciding that off the top of my head would be an idea, but it's going to restrict the amount of games and the amount of injuries that clubs who actually pay their wages on a regular basis is not going to be upset when an international comes along. Everybody needs an international. There's no doubt about it. You need it. And I enjoy watching it.
Do we need it every month?
No, every month. No, I would agree with that.
And do we need to be stopping league fixtures? I mean, I don't know what you're like. Well, I know what you're like, Scott, because obviously, as I say, you're Carlisle United. Went bottom of your football league last week. Sorry to bring that up, but I mean, we had a domestic league break here last week in all divisions. Now, my own club, Clyde, we don't feature any players for an international level. Christ, we're lucky we can get them playing for Clyde, let alone Scotland. But that to me is nonsensical that we're stopping league fixtures up here for an international break or for an international game. You obviously don't do it at the lower leagues, but why stop the domestic football, Dennis?
I mentioned this before, maybe about 3 weeks ago when the internationals were starting, and asked the question, why are we stopping these games when the lower divisions have no contribution whatsoever? Maybe the only contribution, and this is what I said at the time, was that the Tartan Rug Brigade,
that's that behind the scenes,
these clubs, and therefore they want to go and see Scotland, and they also want to see their own team. So what's the easy option? Cancel the games. We'll go and watch Scotland, whether it's home or away, and have our nice meals and everything that goes with it, and then we can be in a position we get both ends of the cake. And I think there's an element there where we need to come out of that and somebody to say why games are not being played. And, it's like a lot of things. You never get clarity when you find it's authorities further up the tree don't actually think, well, you supporters don't really count. It's us that count. Mm-hmm. And I keep seeing that all the time. The game doesn't seem to be for supporters anymore. It seems to be for the fat cats that decide, well, wait a minute, we'll just have that second division and first division and Champions League, championship, all cancelled for a week. Why?
Yeah.
Nobody seems to say why and what we're going to do about it. There's no logic in it, Cammy.
No. But as I say, to me, there's too many international fixtures just now, and that's cluttering up my calendar for definite. And I don't think, Scott, you're alone. I think the majority of fans now would rather watch club football than international games. I think attendances bear that out and everything else.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I think the loss of friendlies, if you like, and now, as we've got the Nations League as it is now, it just seems to roll on month to month to month.
Yeah,
and it's constant international duty. And as you said, Dennis, you're absolutely right with what you're saying. Unless you're a Liverpool, you're an Arsenal, or Man City, or one of these top teams, it's really difficult to lose your players for that long, and then continue domestically with what you're doing there. But you're right as well, Cammy. It doesn't affect us. I mean, we've got three international players, but 2 of them weren't picked. So if they're not picked, you're not going to cancel your game. So It is difficult when you're in the lower leagues and you're watching lower league football, because that's the bread and butter and that's the heart of your community almost. That's what you want to go and see every week. And it's tough. It is tough because you said the sort of prawn sandwich brigade, Dennis. You're absolutely right with that. That is, the decisions are made there, and I think you're onto something there. But I would agree with your statement before by saying let's peel this back and let's look at how this affects the lower end clubs as well as the top clubs, because we all want to see domestic teams doing well, which in turn will make your national team better. But I also think it used to mean something playing for your country, and now it doesn't really feel like that. I just think that it's one of them. Oh well, I've got to go and train with the England team now, or I'm off to Hampden. I've got to go and play with the Scotland team, and it seems that love and that achievement has almost been lost, if you like. Some players will obviously still give it 110% and the beans that you want to see, but I do think that people are just now like, oh well, it's just an international. And I mean that like the likes of your Jack Grealishes, your Jude Bellinghams, your Harry Kanes, them sort of players who are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and trot off to Wembley for a week. But then their club loses them for a week, and what happens at the other end?
Yeah, I think there's enough recognition for these players. In days of old, your international is what you look for. I mean, I'm going back a long, long way, but if you look at the players like Billy Brennan, Joe Jordan, and players like that, Kendall Gleesh and stuff like that, way back, you look at it and you go, these guys were legend. Now we're on at the start of the programme, and I'm knocking a guy for his tattoos because simply his football's not up to the mark.
Yeah.
So I look at it and I say to myself, maybe there is an element that they would rather be posing, coming up and playing for Scotland. Look at me, how good I am. When in actual fact, that's not what the internationals are about. It's to actually, what would you say, give the nation some pride in what their footballers are doing for them, and everybody can enjoy it and really go home and think, by the way, that was excellent. Instead of thinking, what a lazy swine he was out there. And that's what I think we get more. Whether it's because they've got more games all piling up behind them, they go, I'm not going to bust a gut. I've got a game coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, we've spent 40 minutes talking about international football.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I enjoy your show. I watch it every week. I put comments in the chat, as you've seen a couple of times.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep rolling. I'm enjoying this chat. It's good.
No bother. Well, as I say, I think it's time to. It's not very often you'll get a podcast talking about Carlisle United, Scott.
Come on.
So I do apologise, mate. But as I say, unfortunately, you guys are at the foot of the English Football League. Clyde, we're one off the foot of the Scottish Football League, so we share your pain, mate. But the one thing that we do have in common is size of budget. Now, I would have thought Carlisle United, on the back of the money you would have got from Jared Branthwaite, with his transfer moves, that Carlisle United would have a decent sized budget, but it doesn't seem borne out. You've obviously got rid of a manager in the shape of Paul Simpson, who to me was quite a successful coach at other clubs. So what's gone wrong at Brunton Park this season, Scott? Paul?
Well, I tell you what, it's okay. What's happened? I mean, I've been a fan since 1995. My first game was a cup semi-final in the old Johnson's Windscreen Shield, as it was called at the time.
Yeah.
And I went, and my dad said, "Come on, we'll go to York City away." I went to York and we got into the final. And then after that, at 8 years old, it was like, hey, this is born. Next game's Wembley, and it's the old Wembley, and you're thinking to yourself, come on, we're going to play a big team in Birmingham City now, and we lost on goal, the first ever golden goal. And then, it's been an up and down roller coaster ride ever since that, Cammy and Dennis, to be fair. Most recently, when you're talking about budgets and stuff, it's actually not bad. We got bought out by an American consortium called the Piatic family. They own a company called U-Haul in America, which is a moving company. They also own 10% of the Jacksonville Jaguars NFL team, so they're not short of a bob or two moving forward. I think they looked at 2 or 3 or 4 clubs in the Football League and said, we want to try and get a team that's got its own fan base, that's kind of insular in itself, that's an outpost almost, that has a big catchment area as well. And for whatever reason, they chose us. It was a long drawn out process and probably took about 6 or 7 months, but they were at public appearances. They spelled it out to the fans. This is our vision. This is what we're trying to do to change the fortunes of the team. We were £4.5 million in debt, and they came in and just wiped it out immediately. And then in the off season, basically, the season just gone. They've spent £4.5 million on ground improvements, and they've bought a training facility now where they want to have the academy, and it's local, it's in the community, and again, it's another £5 million on that. So it's not like they're not, they're not doing that. Paul Simpson's the best coach we've ever had in my lifetime. You could go back to Alan Ashman maybe, or Ivor Brodis, if you want to go really, really far back and think, these were good. Even, Shankly was there years and years ago, before he went to Liverpool. But Paul Simpson's been our most successful manager in any way, shape or form. And 3 years ago, we were down the pan. We were no doubt about it, looking at non-league football. We had a guy called Keith Millen come in on a short term for about eight games, and it just didn't work. And for whatever reason, they brought Paul Simpson out of retirement and said, look, will you do us a favour and just try and keep us up? And he did. He came in, he got them motivated, and we stayed up with ease, actually. I think we finished 13th in League Two. And then the following year, he said, look, I'll take it on. I'll sign a 2-year deal. And then the following year, he got us promoted through the playoffs up to League One. And now, that was a season too soon for everybody to see. It was a season too soon. And going up through the playoffs, you haven't got the off season where you're like, oh, you know what, I can take all these free agents, I can pick up the decent players. So we had a late squad coming together. Didn't work. We were awful and finished bottom of the league. And I think, Cammy, we've just got into that losing habit, and we can't get out of that losing habit. We gave Simo another chance this year, and I think the Piatek family were loyal to him and said, this guy's a club legend. He still knows what he's doing. Recruitment-wise, been off the wall. I mean, we're paying a striker in Charlie Wyke who was playing Championship football last year $10,000 a week. That's not a joke. That's not a joke in League Two football. We've got a guy called Jordan Jones who used to play for Kilmarnock, I believe.
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah. He's came in from Wigan. I think he's on a good sum of money. We're talking 5-6K a week. We spent transfer fees. In January we bought a keeper from Bradford for $200,000. A lad up front called Luke Armstrong who came in from Harrogate, who he wouldn't be our player if Wrexham hadn't ballsed up the paperwork. He was going to Wrexham on deadline day for $500,000, and for whatever reason they didn't get the paperwork in time. And I think in the end he signed for us for about 250k. I think they're spending all this money initially in the hope that Jared Branthwaite, as you mentioned before, eventually leaves Everton and moves on, because we have a 20% sell-on clause. So having a 20% sell-on clause in Jared's contract is massive, because we only sold him to Everton for £1 million.
Right, okay.
So now we're trying to cash in, and with him being at PSV and then playing in the Premier League, getting in the England team, it's like, actually, this kid's pretty good. So when Man United was sniffing around for about 40-odd million, I was like, just please go, because this is for a team like mine. This is 10 years worth of investment in a small club. Still getting massive crowds, good crowds. I think it's going to be about 9,000 there tomorrow. We've got a manager in the end. I think the way they want it to go is slightly different, and I think sometimes being American owners who've never done this before, they're a bit naive, and they've spent a little bit too much time letting people go, oh well, we'll let you do the business side, and we'll let you do this, and it's okay, we'll be loyal to you. But they've brought in Williams from Mike Williams from MK Dons. We paid 250 grand to get him out of his contract, and bought him out of his contract, and he decided to come to us with his coaching staff. Had really expansive, good football at Gateshead. He did really well at Gateshead. He got poached by MK Dons from Gateshead to MK Dons. Kept them up when they were struggling in League Two, and they had a decent enough season. And I think the fortunate thing is the Piatek saw him early in the season, and they absolutely battered us from pillar to post at their place, and we lost 3-0. And it was really expansive football, wide out the sides, and playing out from the back and all that sort of thing. And you're like, yeah, this is a really good side who will be right up there in our league. And he's come into our team with players who can't play in this system, and he refuses to change the system. So no matter what, we are playing 2 wing backs, and we're playing basically 5-3-2 is what you're playing with wing backs, and everything is played out from the back. So the centre half is kicking it to the keeper. The keeper's and it's ticky tacky Pep Guardiola football, which is not happening in League Two. When Scott, I'm looking at this, Dennis, you go ahead, mate.
Is that the fact that the chairman knows nothing about the game?
Correct.
Tom Piatek, or whatever he's called.
Tom Piatek, yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
What's his background?
So his background is not in football at all. He owns part of an NFL franchise. He's got no links to this team. He's got no links to the community.
There's always my problem with football.
It's not like a Ryan Reynolds thing where they've got endless pockets.
Yeah.
But he's got guys who've been in football running things for him.
Yeah, I believe the assistant manager with the boy Simpson was Gavin Skelton.
That's right. It was Gavin Skelton.
I was managing, played with Gretna. By the way, he was an excellent player. and I would also think that he would be a good contribution to a League Two team. So between the boys Simpson and Gavin Skelton, I find that, you look at it and you say to yourself, what more does he really want other than maybe try to get fine-tune it? Because what he's looking for now is a sporting director. Maybe he should have done that before he get rid of the manager.
Well, that was the idea, Dennis, was to get the sporting director in first and then get the manager in. And I think we got knocked back by a couple of guys for the sporting director slot. And then the next thing we knew, there's Mike Williams, and it's like, hang on a minute, what's happening here? Where's he come from? And there's still no sporting director, despite them saying, oh yeah, we're still looking at this approach of having a sporting director. Someone needs to come in there. I mean, we've never had that before. Never had a head coach, never had a sporting director. We've always had a manager, and an assistant manager, as you would be. So it's really difficult because the head of recruitment in Carlisle is a guy called Greg Abbott. And Greg was our manager as well at times. And to be honest with you, he's the only other guy who's lifted a trophy in the last 20 years for the club. So he should get it. But some of the recruitment that they've done is frankly abysmal. I'm looking at these players, and I watched them against Wimbledon last week, and we lost 4-0 against a pretty average Wimbledon side. Yeah. And they just didn't even look like they cared. There wasn't a single voice on the park. There wasn't anybody who wanted to say, I can accept it when we've got a crap team. And I'm going back to the Jimmy Glass years, and the times when we were absolutely terrible under Michael Knighton, and, you were picking up people like John Bass up front, who was an old school 35-year-old forward, Andy Gorham in goal, and you're like, hang on a minute, what's happening here? Where are we getting these players from? But at least they give a shit. Yeah. And it just looks like what you were saying before, to your point, Dennis, about players just not really caring. There's nobody on that park I see on a Saturday who wants to just grab someone by the scruff of the neck and say, this isn't good enough, lads. We've got to get forward. We've got to get out of this rut. But the manager isn't changing either. And he's only had 6 games. And already the noise is starting. And the vultures are circling and saying, is it time to get rid of him now? I don't know. I think we're on a hiding to nothing at the minute, but I do think there's 2 worse sides in that league. So I think we might be okay, but we're going to have to start winning somehow. So I don't know.
You're not a million miles away from getting up to a healthy position. And we talk about match swings. You look at it and you take next 2 games, that gives you 13 points. You'd be up sitting at 15th spot, assuming the others drop points, but which they will. So, we have this conversation normally when we look at leagues, or I do anyway, and I always think, it looks a bit doom and gloom. Get 2 results under your belt and you're up there. And everybody plays better then. Everybody has a different approach. They're not worrying about what's going on around about them. They're only interested in the next game. They can't wait to get out because we're winning. But that's all it needs, 2 games. It does. And if you look at Morecambe above you, They've had 4 in the bounce draws, then they lost, and then they win their last game, and they're sitting there level with 7 points. So, I don't think it's too doom and gloom, but maybe the sporting director coming in with the window coming up in January, and you could be setting your sights for something that's maybe a wee bit more favourable than what you've got just now.
Yeah, I hope so, but he needs to try and get a tune out of these players as well, because at the moment, the lads who he's got, the system just... It doesn't look good, and in January you're not going to change 11 players. No. It's a really tough one to do. But I'm expecting someone like Charlie Wyke, who's played for this side before and had a good spell with us, to come in and be like, right, I know the club, I know what the fan base is like, I know the area. I've just got to get goals under my belt. But the way that the football's being played at the minute, it's not working. For whatever reason. And I don't know if it's the ability of the players, which it probably is. Don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of injuries as well, but you can't blame this all on injuries. No. You simply can't. When you're paying that amount of money for players, it's wild. It's absolutely wild to be saying, well, a lad like Luke Armstrong from Harrogate, who came in and was on fire, scoring loads and loads and loads of goals, comes into us, and he just runs around like a headless chicken. And I think he's got 1 in 10. I think is his ratio now. But he's working hard, and he is working hard, and you can see that he's working. He's working his nuts off on the park.
He was Scottish. Yeah, again with us.
but he's not getting he's not getting a tune out of these players at the minute. So
well, that's what I was going to say.
see.
I mean, it must be down to system. If you've got guys here who have been successful at other clubs, you know, I mean, Jordan Jones was decent at Kilmarnock. Charlie White's a name I've heard before. You know, so if you get these guys who are coming in and not getting performances, that's down to the manager and it's down to the system, and the manager's got to play at the strength. Again, Scott, we talk about it in the other sport that we watch. You know, it's all about the systems, and you coach around the players that you have. You know, you don't try and get the players to fit your system. Your system's got to fit the players.
I agree completely with that.
You know.
But we will see. I think they're just in that losing habit at the minute, unfortunately, and they just can't seem to get out of the losing habit. And it's become, you know, when the rot sets in at a club, and it's really difficult to see. But you know that I know fine well that when we look at this team, if they go 1-0 down, the heads are dropped. And I look at that and think to myself, we're really going to struggle here to get out of the to get out of this rut. I mean, Mike Williamson's played at the highest level. You know, he's a Premiership centre half. Wasn't very good Premiership centre half, but still he made a career out of it. You know what I mean? And he just seems to be one of these Pep disciples who wants to just play ticky-tacky football. And when you're bottom of the Football League, you sometimes you just got to lump it and hope for the best. You know? Of course you have, absolutely. But fortune favours the brave, I suppose. Harrogate tomorrow at home. They're our bogey team, Dennis. We've won. We haven't beaten them yet since they've been in the Football League. I think we've played them 6 times, I think, and they've had 5 wins and we've had 1 draw. Yeah. So
sometime.
Hoodoo. They've got a hoodoo on us, I think, but they're not an amazing side either. They're kind of mid-table, which for them, you know, what is essentially a village club. You know, they're doing very well on a very short and small budget, but yeah, it'll be a tough one tomorrow. But if we can get a result here, and then I think we've got Walsall, who are at the top end of the league. I think we've got them on Tuesday away, so that'll be a tough game.
Yeah. No, well, good luck with that one.
Yeah, definitely. So. As I said, I think I'm going to try and get down for a game at some point in time. You know.
Yeah, we'll have to come down.
To play or watch it, Cammy?
No, I'm definitely not going to play. You know.
All right. Okay.
Well, if you get your boots, Cammy, if you can play at centre half, we'll be all right. Yeah.
Hey, Dennis, I've got too many tattoos to play football.
Well, that's true. No, you could maybe add a few if you got a game.
Anyway, moving back to obviously north of the border, Dennis, in association as all with football kits at Kits Scotland, our sponsors. Let's run through the rest of the fixtures.
All right. Okay. Well, let's look at the big game, which is tomorrow, and that is a big game. And it probably be one of the biggest throughout the whole season, I would imagine. And that is Celtic's got Aberdeen at Parkhead, 3:00 kickoff. I'll run through the fixtures, then we can have a quick chat about them. Dundee United are playing Hibernian. Hearts have St Mirren. Motherwell have Dundee. St Johnstone play Ross County. And then on Sunday, Kilmarnock play Rangers. The other game, the games before the Rangers Kilmarnock game is 3:00, and the Kilmarnock Rangers is 12:00.
Yeah.
Just starting with that, Cammy, we've spoke about this game coming up with Celtic against Aberdeen. I think when I mentioned this last week or the week before, that when you touched on it there, so it does bring it into play, the amount of games that players are playing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I know there's not a million of them maybe played with internationals for Celtic or Aberdeen, certainly in the squad, but I think something will break somewhere along the line. You'll maybe find that Celtic can drop points throughout the season rather than thinking they're just going to go through the season without dropping anything. Now, tomorrow is a litmus test for that. And I do believe if Aberdeen are going to make a challenge, they need to get something out of the game tomorrow. So I'm looking at this really with a lot other than just the game itself, is to see how the season is going to go. Because if Aberdeen don't lay a glove in them tomorrow, then we're back to square one. You're just going to find it's a one-horse race, because Rangers, I don't think, unless they really turn Kilmarnock over on Sunday, are really going to make a challenge. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out tomorrow.
Yeah, and interesting, Scott, that a lot of not only Dennis, but I think a lot of folk up here are actually seeing Aberdeen as possibly the biggest challengers to Celtic this season, rather than
Yeah,
Rangers.
I agree with you. 7 out of 7 for both teams. It's a massive game, as Dennis said. It is a massive game. I actually want to watch this. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. That's for sure. But yeah, Aberdeen. This is a litmus test for them. Are they pretenders or are they genuine challengers?
Yeah. We had it again last weekend, Scott, a yardstick game, and I think this is a yardstick game for Aberdeen.
Absolutely.
You know, I think definitely is. It's a game I think Celtic can probably afford to lose. So can Aberdeen, obviously, but you're right. Aberdeen have got to be seen at least to put a glove on Celtic, at least go out there and compete with them, Dennis, and try to take the game, I think, to Celtic and prove that Celtic are not unbeatable, prove that they can be vulnerable at times.
I'll tell you what, though, it's a massive task because Aberdeen over the years have came to Parkhead and not really laid a glove on them.
Yeah.
Especially under Derek McInnes and stuff. And as much as sometimes Aberdeen were really good, I just don't think they've done enough. And I think sometimes when they were looking at maybe pushing to win the championship, Celtic was always a hurdle, as Rangers were as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big two that they've got to get by. It's fresh blood up there in Aberdeen. New manager that doesn't really know the history probably of actually being involved in a game like this. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes about it. I just hope they don't come down to Glasgow and try and shut up shop, because Kilmarnock done it the first game of the season and got absolutely torn apart with Celtic.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it'll be an open game and we'll maybe see a couple of goals either end. And that would be interesting to see how it would go.
I think Aberdeen will not change their style of play. I don't think they'll come down here to shut up shop. I think they will try to get something from the game, and I think they will approach it positively. So, as Scott says, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, because the guy's got to test the water. The new manager at Aberdeen, he's got to test the water to just see what his own talent is like against a team like Celtic.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's got to be fairly open in my eyes. Whether he lasts that for an hour and thinks, "Oh, I've had enough here," then you've really got to look at it and say, "Right, let's have a go at them," without going gung ho and losing the plot, being all over the place.
Did he come from Elfsborg? Did he, Thielen?
Yeah.
Is that where he was at before?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, decent manager, but again, if you don't know the history of the club and what Aberdeen were like, during the 90s and,
the 80s was a big period, yeah. The 83, around about that period when
that's what I mean.
Ferguson was there. The thing is, you don't get back to the days, but you can certainly try when you've won your games from the start of the season, you've not lost a game. There's a lot to be said for that. And having said that also, some of the games have played up to now have been the poorer part of the league, but you can't take it away from them. They haven't slipped and they are sitting joint at the top with Celtic. So it's a big game. Big game.
Big game.
Yeah. Dundee United.
It's a big game. So why the hell have we got Kilmarnock against Rangers on the television and this game is on a Saturday afternoon and not on the TV?
Yeah, well, I think I heard something about that, but I can't recall. But yeah,
I mean, well, we know the answer. It's because Celtic are at home and Rangers are away.
Yeah,
I mean, let's look at it that way. But was this game up at Pittodrie, this would be a televised game. But the fact is that it's at Celtic Park, so we're not going to see it in the telly, and that's pretty garbage.
Yeah, well, I'll see it by hook or by crook. Don't worry about it. I'm not going into that one. How you see it?
No, don't bother with that.
Everybody knows how you can see it. It's not.
Well, that's it. But that's not right.
Yeah, that's right. So if you don't, you see the highlights. That sometimes can be enough. And if it's an entertaining game, the highlights will be more than enough. If you find it would be a great result, I'm sure for both supporters would be 3 each. What more do you want?
Well, I'm at fourth bank, so I'm not going to see it anyway.
Yeah, Dundee United are playing Hibs. Now, this could be a banana skin for the Hibernian directors with their new appointment, or recent appointment, if they don't win that, because Hibernian are sitting 10th in the league, having won one game out of the last 6, and Dundee United are won the last game. The last 6 games, they've won 3 of them. So I think Dundee United against Hibs tomorrow could be a problem for Hibs if they don't win it.
I've discussed that previously, but they were under a wee bit of pressure from early in the season. They managed to get a couple of results, which obviously kept the manager in a job. But I think it's only one bad result away from Hibs making a change. And that could well be tomorrow. I think Dundee United have done really, really well so far this season. As you say, they've won 3 of the last 6. Started the season really well. And I quite fancy Dundee United to get something from this and actually to win the game tomorrow.
Yeah. Moving on to the next game. Hearts St Mirren, new manager, Neil Critchley. Right. He has been at Queen's Park Rangers. He's been at Liverpool under-18s. He's also got an elite UEFA badge. He took the under-18s, and he also had a spell with Steven Gerrard as assistant head coach at Villa. So he's been around.
Seen him play. I've actually seen him play for Lee RMI. Weirdly enough, back in the day.
So, anyway, in the past he's won the playoffs with Blackpool to get them into the Championship.
Yeah.
But he had a contract with QPR for 3 years, and he got sacked after 2 months, where he won 1 game in 12. He returned to Blackpool, this is May 27th, 3, and was sacked the following August. So again, I look at that, it could be a 2-goal. He was fairly successful up to his last 2 clubs.
Yeah.
And I think they've brought him in. And I think, okay, let's see what he's made of. It's Scottish football, and if he brings a wee bit to the party, it might improve them, because the Hearts team are really needing a fresh injection in there. So that will be interesting to see how, if they hit the ground running against St Mirren, who I think will be tough opposition for them tomorrow.
It reminds me very much of Paul Higginbotham, who came up and did took on the Hibs job, and then went back down the road after realising that the Scottish football wasn't the simple job that they thought it was going to be. Okay, you get the job with Sheffield United in the Premiership, but it very, very much reminds me of the same thing, and I think Hearts are going to find that as well. When you consider the other managers that were in the frame for the Hearts job, Critchley seems like, Christ, here we better hurry up, make an appointment type guy, and I think we'll see the season out, and that'll be him.
Well, I'm just hoping he doesn't turn out like Gerrard's other assistant that ended up at Ibrox.
I was going to say the same thing as well. Again, QPR again as well, Dennis.
He was absolutely shambolic, and he brought nothing to Scottish football, and I found him quite embarrassing. So I don't think this guy will maybe be the same, but let's hope he can get Hearts off to a good start.
Yeah.
Motherwell Dundee.
Home win.
Yeah. St Johnstone Ross County. Well, that'll be a bit of a battle between the two.
Interesting one, that,
yeah.
I mean, both lost the last game, haven't they? So
yeah. Ross County have done okay with themselves recently. They're sitting with 7 points, but that means nothing after 2 games. But they're sitting in the 7th spot when, in reality, they were sort of getting tipped by us to a degree to be St Johnstone and them to be down at the bottom of the league. And they're sitting in the table.
I think Ross County obviously showed their last game, that 2-1 home defeat by Celtic. Yeah. When everybody was tipping them to get an absolute hammer and going to be a bounce back game for Celtic after their drubbing at Dortmund, so a 2-1 defeat isn't the worst result, and I think Ross County can turn things round.
Yeah, okay. The Sunday game, Kilmarnock and Rangers. What do you think will be the outcome in that?
When you go, Scott, leave that one to you.
Yeah, Rangers will win that, I think, to be honest with you. I mean, Kilmarnock are coming off a win, and they've had draws, haven't they, as well? They're a draw-happy team by the looks of it, but Rangers won the last 3, so, yeah, I mean, I can't see anything other than a Rangers win there for me.
Yeah, I can't make Kilmarnock out. 1 minute I think they're doing no too bad, and the next they just look like a relegation team. And something? I just wish they get back to grass, because see this artificial surface, it does man nothing. It really does.
Yeah.
I think there's an element there where not everybody likes it, and I'm sure some Kilmarnock players wouldn't like it, but it's their bread and butter. That's where they've got their salary from. But it doesn't lend itself to entertaining football. I've never seen a good match on artificial surface in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure players would rather play on grass as well.
Yeah.
That's
So,
definite.
you know, I'd like to see Kilmarnock. They've always been a strong team, but just recently they've been slipping and looking near a stage where they could drop just as quick as almost Livingston did. I mean, they got into Europe last year, but you just look at them now and they're a shadow of that team. And they've been a shadow of that team since the Scottish manager left them.
Yeah, I think they'll turn things round. I think they'll get a point on Sunday.
Aye, probably could. Yeah, probably could.
So there we go.
What are we moving into now, Cammy? Quickly going through these fixtures because we're well over.
Yeah, and into Scots division.
Yeah, well, there's a game on just now, which is Hamilton against Falkirk.
Yeah,
Falkirk are winning 1-0. Then you look at the rest of the games. Ayr United, Livingston, Dunfermline, Greenock, Morton, Thistle, Airdrie, and Wraith Rovers have Queen's Park. Any of them quickly that jump out for you, Cammy or Scott?
Well, I'll let Scott take on his game. You can make a reference on it, Scott. On you go.
What Wraith Rovers?
Yep.
No, that's the Kirkcaldy team. No, I'm not fussed about that. Ayr Livingston was the one that stood out for me there. Obviously top of the league. Looking at that, but with Falkirk winning tonight, if that stays the same, obviously it's back to Ayr to try and keep challenging. But no, that'll be a good fixture. Good fixture tomorrow. That one.
Yeah. I think Livingston will get a result down at Somerset Park. They need to start turning things round. And as I say, I think they'll get a result there tomorrow. I think the bubble's going to burst a wee bit for Ayr United over the next 2 or 3 games, and I think you're going to see a top 2 of Falkirk and Livingston.
Well, we could see a changeover tomorrow if Livingston do win, because there's 2 points between Ayr and Livingston. Yep. So Livingston could leapfrog Ayr United. I'll tell you what, a right good game.
That should be a cracker. That should be. And I think obviously Somerset Park, I still think that's still a grass surface down there. So rather than playing in the plastic pitch at Livingston, so to go down there and play on the grass down at Livingston, usually just used to smoking it through there, but obviously playing on it's a bit different.
Anyway, into League One, we've got Arbroath, Dumbarton, Cove Rangers, Queen of the South, Inverness, Cally Thistle, and an Athletic, Kelty Hearts, Montrose, Stenhousemuir, Havalua. So, Cove Rangers, are they going to change? We had Ian on last week, who was at Cove Rangers and Aberdeen supporter. They got a victory, so it's made them jump up again. We keep talking about that. They went from looking at 8 points, they're now sitting at 11. Now, I don't know, have we heard anything, or is that going to be next week on Inverness Cally Thistle?
I think it's next week. I think that they managed to raise, I think their GoFundMe page managed to raise about 80 grand, but they're now considering offers. They've had 2 or 3 offers for the clubs, which they're now considering and looking at, So I think the 80 grand will stop them short term going into administration anyway, and if they can get the buyout all sorted, then hopefully that will stop the club going into administration, save them the 10 points.
It's just a pity actually that they're actually having to compete on a Saturday basis, not knowing whether they're going to be in a job next week.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a shame, but that's what the way it goes.
How unfortunate!
Point that somebody maybe sitting in the wings with the money could maybe have ploughed it in earlier on, or they could approach somebody. But that's the way it is. So did I go through the Arbroath of Dumbarton, Cove Queen of the South, Inverness Callyanning, Kelty Hearts, Montrose, and Stenhousemuir have Alloa. So I don't know if there's any others that really
I think Stenhousemuir Alloa jumps out to me. I think that could be a good game.
Yeah, again, you've got second and third spot, both sitting in 14 points. So something might give in that one, Cammy. Yeah. We look into League Two, and you've got Bonnyrigg Rose against Edinburgh City. Forfar are playing East Fife. Spartans, Elgin City. Stirling Albion are playing Clyde, and Stranraer are playing Peterhead. Peterhead dropped a wee bit. That's the last 3 games. They've lost 2 and drawn 1. That was my tip for the going up. East Fife continuing to be really strong. And the one, even though they've drawn 4 games out of the last 6, is Elgin City.
Yeah.
Clyde, your own team, Cammy, just touching on that, because I know we are running out of time. Stirling Albion tomorrow, sitting in 4th spot. Last 2 games have won. Clyde sitting there. 4 draws and 2 defeats before that.
Yeah.
Is it going to change? And
well, obviously the manager's changed.
Yeah, well, I don't know that, and there's my question to you, because I haven't noticed it this week. Who's the new manager?
At the moment, it's still Scally, Neil Scally and Mark Kerr on a caretaker basis just now. Okay. They're interim managers. Hopefully, it'll change around a bit. Obviously, this is us entering the second quarter of the season in the lower 3 leagues in Scotland. And as I say, Stirling Albion still probably one of the poorest sides I've seen. Okay. They came to Hamilton. I still kind of used to saying that. They came to Hamilton, and I think that was a game they had 1 shot on goal and actually scored twice. So there you go. Go figure that one out. And they managed to beat Clyde 2-0. Clyde huffed and puffed and really couldn't get a goal. So hopefully we bit of revenge tomorrow going to Fourth Bank. New managers, hopefully they will make a difference. I think it was getting very, very stale very, very quickly under Ian McCall after last season's heroics. Mm-hmm. It really has to change. We talked about budgets earlier on with Scott and Carlisle. Clyde, one of the biggest budgets, if not the biggest budgets in League Two. And their position pretty much belies the money that's been ploughed into the club. So they need to turn things round. Top 4 was their goal at the start of the season. They've got 3 quarters of the season to make that happen. And as I say, Mark Kerr and Neil Scally are the guys in charge tomorrow for the first time.
Well, see, if things worked out while you're talking, I'm looking at the fixtures and I'm doing calculations with it. You could actually end up tomorrow 5th equal. Yeah. From being bottom in the league, or even higher. Oh, you wouldn't get. Yeah, you could be sitting in 5th.
Yeah.
If things work out in Clyde's favour, that's a massive jump from 10th.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, if I don't even bother with if your granny had whatever should be a granda, it's along the lines, it's all if buts and maybes, and until the points in the bag, you can't really start saying, well, this might happen and that might happen. So I think all Clyde can do is tomorrow's go out and win. That's it. All you can do is go out, win your own games, and as long as you keep winning, there's still enough games left in the season to be able to turn things around. But it has to start tomorrow, and it has to start quickly.
Well, if we don't finish up shortly, we'll be able to go straight for here to the Clyde game.
Yeah, exactly. So another long episode again.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
an hour and 12 minutes so far.
Well, let's look at, because what we've got next week is just touching on it, and I mean touching on it is we've got the Champions League, and obviously there's some cracking games on there. Atalanta, Celtic are away to on Wednesday night. I'm just trying to pick out Rangers fixture because I haven't really got that in my head either. They will be. Are they playing the following night? Yep. They are playing against FCSB. Good, Cammy, tell me what that's for.
I've not got a bloody clue.
Yeah, that's the Thursday, and then you've also got the Thursday where Hearts are playing Nicosia. So that's what we've got next week as well. Again, back to the point you mentioned right at the beginning, too many games. There we're straight out international, and the champions, European football's taking over. So, listen, can't complain. It's games.
No.
It's games.
Definitely not.
Top quality games.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow, as I say, forget the top quality games. I'll be at Fourth Bank watching Stirling Albion against Clyde. Scott, I'm quite sure, will be taking interest to the Carlisle United game tomorrow. Our big game's 9:25 on Sunday. Scott and I keep fighting about what time's the best time for a game, but never mind. Next week we continue the vein of guests of folk that follow Washington. We've got Rod Morrison, Hearts fan, who's also, he'll be on the show and he'll be able to look back at the Hearts game against Omnia Nicosia. all I ask, guys, is anybody listening, like, subscribe, comment, share, tell your pals, because we're going to be here whether you're listening or not, but it's nice to at least know there's some folk there paying attention. Thanks very much to my guest tonight, Scott Hartley. Thanks as always to Dennis Newell as co-host, and we'll be here same time, same place next week. Good night.